In this video, we will be covering the basic configuration steps for managing user-defined fields in FreezerPro. This will largely take place in the Settings and Preferences section and will require administrative privileges and access rights. For configuration tools, expand the Settings and Preferences section. To continue with our configuration, we will discuss how to manage user-defined fields. Double-click on the User-Defined Fields tab to open the User-Defined Fields configuration window. User-defined fields are used to further identify additional information about samples, sample types, sample sources, and other components of the system. UDFs become very useful for when you would like to tie specific information to a particular component, such as a patient sample source and its contact information. FreezerPro allows you the ability to track all of the information in detail using user-defined fields. Each user-defined field can be modified, customized, or deleted to fit your lab management needs at any time. There is no limit to the number of user-defined fields that can be defined in your system. In this view, we can add, delete, and edit user-defined fields by selecting their respective tools. We may also set the access permissions for each user-defined field by selecting the Access Permissions tool. To add a user-defined field, select the Add New User-Defined Field tool at the top of the view. Alternatively, you may right-click on the view and select the Add New User-Defined Field tool. The first step in adding a user-defined field is selecting the type of data the UDF will represent. There are several types of data a UDF may represent in the system. A date UDF will permit the user to enter a date in day, month, year format. A text field UDF will permit the user to enter up to 255 characters. A text area UDF will permit the user to enter up to 1024 characters. A checkbox UDF will permit the user to select several options that are applied to the represented information, such as dialyzed, yes, or no. A list UDF will permit the user to apply multiple options of the available data to the corresponding representation. A choice UDF or radio button UDF will permit the user to select one of multiple options of the available data to the corresponding representation. A URL UDF will allow the user to enter a hyperlink. An image URL UDF will allow the user to enter an image hyperlink, which will display the image when the sample is selected. The auto-incremental UDF will allow the user to set an initial value, after which each object that is created with this UDF will increment the UDF value by 1. A number UDF will allow the user to enter numeral information only. In the More section, there are several advanced options. The Time UDF will allow the user to set a time based in 15-minute increments or entered manually. The Separator UDF will allow the user to set a separator between respective information. The File UDF will allow the user to attach a file. The Nested Dataset UDF will allow the user to set list within list values. The Key Value List UDF will allow the user to set one-to-one or one-to-many relationship values. Last, the FreezerPro User UDF will allow the user to select a user within the FreezerPro system. After selecting the type of UDF you would like to create, an Add window will appear. In this window, you may assign a name to your new user-defined field. You may also assign help text to your user-defined field. Help text is displayed when the mouse hovers over the user-defined field in the information editing windows and can help explain what the user-defined field's information should look like. You may also assign a default value to your user-defined field. A default value will always be entered if no information is provided for the user-defined field. By clicking the Unique checkbox, you can ensure that the information entered into the user-defined field cannot be a duplicate of anything else of a respective object in the system. The last option, Show in Grid, allows you to see all entered information for this user-defined field and all of the list views. Remember, each list view is called a grid. When you have finished entering the information for your user-defined field, you may add it by selecting the Add button. It may be necessary to edit a user-defined field's information at some point. In order to do this, you may select the user-defined field in the view and then select the Properties tool in the toolbar. Alternatively, you may right-click on the user-defined field and select the Properties tool from the available menu. When in the editing window, you may change the name, help text, and default values of the user-defined field. Additionally, you may check or uncheck the Unique and Show in Grid options boxes. When any changes are made, you may finalize them by selecting the Save button. If at any time it becomes necessary to delete a user-defined field, the Delete User-Defined Field tool may be used. To delete a user-defined field, simply select it in the view and select the Delete User-Defined Field tool in the top menu bar. Alternatively, you may right-click on the user-defined field in the view and select the Delete User-Defined Field tool from the pop-up menu. As with many components in the FreezerPro system, such as users and roles, user-defined fields cannot be deleted when they are in use. The last tool to use when managing user-defined fields is the Access Permissions tool. Note that the Access Permissions tool behaves the same way for all components in the system which can have access permissions. You may select the user-defined field, choose the Access Permissions tool in the menu bar, and set the access permission to the user-defined field for each user group in the system. The available access permissions are Full Access, View Only Access, and No Access. To save your permission changes, simply select the Save Permissions button in the corresponding window. This concludes the General Configuration Managing User-Defined Fields video tutorial. Up next, we will discuss managing box types. To review, user-defined fields can be managed in the Settings and Preferences section. User-defined fields are used to further identify additional information about samples, sample types, sample sources, and other components of your FreezerPro system. You may add, edit, and delete user-defined fields in the Management view. You may also restrict which user groups have access to each user-defined field by using the Permissions tool. There is no limit to the number of user-defined fields you can have in the system.